Hey guys, Alex and Dan from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had Enlightenment. What was that one about?
Well, oddly enough, it was a race between ships in space, but they weren't spaceships. They were like, schooner, yacht, a Victorian yacht or Edwardian yacht, and then there was a pirate ship and something else. Anyway, and the winner of the race supposedly would get enlightenment. There was some, nebulous little sparkly thing in the middle of the galaxy. And the Doctor began to realize they didn't want to gain enlightenment because that would literally mean the end of their immortality. These were immortals who raced because there was, nothing better to do. They were so bored with everything. And Turlough had one last chance to try to kill the Doctor at the urging of the Black Guardian, but in the end, the Black Guardian was banished. We don't know if he was actually destroyed, but he was banished. And the White Guardian came in and, helped out with something. And then they're ready to sail off, theoretically, if I recall, to take Turlough back to his home planet.
Yeah, which I think still just means Earth. He's just weird, but I don't know. I think he is still from Earth. He just views Earth very strangely. So,
I got, again, this is me personally, I got the impression, though, that he was from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely talks about Earth as if he's not from there. He's not a part of it, but I don't know. Yeah, so that was that. Turlough is now officially good. He has broken free from the Black Guardian. So an interesting thing. What was the last episode that went up? Not Enlightenment, not Terminus. It was Modern Undead, which I guess is where we were introduced to Turlough.
Yeah,
a lot of Turlough support in the comments, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not about to come out here completely bashing Turlough. However, we have said he's not the most interesting thing, and I think that is because he is. It's not that Turlough is uninteresting. Like, it's an interesting idea for a companion. I think the problem is the Black Guardian. That tying Turlough to someone like the Black Guardian doesn't make it that compelling, because the Black Guardian's just really boring.
Yeah.
He's just big man with bird on head who says, "Kill the Doctor," and that's it. With no way for this schoolboy to kill a 1,000-year-old Time Lord. So, yeah, I think that's been sort of my problem. Probably if I looked back on it, I would probably enjoy more of Turlough and his performance and everything. It's just that tying it, like, if he was tied to the Master, that'd be great, But that's also just because that's the Master. The Master's so much fun. So yeah, I don't know.
And I was doing some reading on Lost in Space over the past week, because we mentioned Lost in Space and how Turlough kind of fits the Dr. Smith character. And they were talking about the fact that Dr. Smith was not supposed to be in the entire series. He was supposed to essentially set it up, and then he was supposed to disappear. But like many characters in the 60s and 70s, he proved to be so much of a fan favorite that they decided that he would then become a stowaway on the Jupiter 2, and that's how they kept him into the series.
Yeah. It's always interesting seeing stuff like that in shows. Breaking Bad certainly had that a lot, where I think, like, Gus and Mike and Saul were all kind of supposed to be one-off or maybe two-episode characters, and then they were so good that they just kept them around for most of the rest of the show. So I think the only one that was sort of planned to stay around was Saul. But yeah, Gus was only supposed to be a one-off. Mike, they didn't even intend on making Mike. The initial scene that he's in was supposed to be a scene with Saul Goodman, but they couldn't get Bob Odenkirk that day. He was filming something else in California, I think, so they just did that, and then they had Jonathan Banks, and they were like, "We really like this guy. Yeah. We got to keep him around." So that's always an interesting thing.
Yeah, you can write a decent character, but it takes a really, really good actor for the producers, the showrunners, as we're now calling them, to say, that was just supposed to be a one-off, but this guy's really interesting, and I think maybe we can do some more with him.
Yeah, and actually, that was also the case in Breaking Bad with Jesse. That Jesse was supposed to die at the end of the first season of Breaking Bad, but they really liked Aaron Paul so much that they kept him in, and it was that scene where like Tuco beats the guy to death. Basically, that was supposed to be he was going to kill Jesse there. So, and it's just a really strange thing because I cannot imagine Breaking Bad without Jesse, you know? So, but I'm sure people who watch Lost in Space couldn't imagine it without Dr. Smith.
Yeah.
So, anywho, back to Doctor Who. Anyway, we've got a two-parter today.
Oh.
So I hope you didn't strap it. Normally we say, strap in or, get a sandwich or something, but we're not going to be here that long today. Although, I say that, I imagine this video is only going to be like 10 minutes shorter than our normal videos.
We do tend to talk a lot.
Yeah. So,
for example, I'm glad it's a two-parter today because I'm exhausted. My wife and I have been running a theater. We started rehearsals last January on my show that I directed. We have produced the last 5 shows now, and we're on the last 2 performances. We record this on Saturday morning. Tonight and tomorrow afternoon are our final 2 performances of this season. And in the midst of everything else, yesterday, about 1 o'clock, the plumbing system in our theater building broke down, and the plumbers came out and worked on it nonstop for more than 6 hours. Finally got it to the point where we could let people into the theater, knowing that if they flushed the toilet, it wasn't going to eject them into space or something. So, with all of that, and then having to do the show last night, not getting home till 11 o'clock, I'm totally wiped out.
And as a reminder to the folks at home, how old are you?
I'll be, what is this? This is October? I'll be 72 in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, so it's not great. Now, again, I say that because you do carry yourself very well for a nearly 72-year-old man, but it's not something you should be doing at that age. So, anywho, so yeah, it's a nice 2-parter. We're going to relax.
And it looks to be historical.
It does.
Yay.
It does look to be a historical. And next week, we have the 5 Doctors. And that is just going to be all in one go. They don't have a 4-part cut of it on BritBox. It's just a straight 1 hour 30 minutes. So we'll just go through that and then do the discussion as always.
Okay.
But yeah, that'll be the fun. Oh, someone also mentioned that I think it was on the Modern Undead episode that it was pointed out to JNT, the producer of the show, that isn't it great that season 20, the 20th anniversary, we're bringing back all these classic villains. Upon which he said, "Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, we didn't plan on that." Which is why the last 2 parts have just been more Black Guardian stuff. So, right when we noticed a pattern is right when I guess he noticed a pattern too, but it was too late to continue that pattern. So, anywho, we're on to...
It'll also be nicer now to watch the 5 Doctors now that we know who all the companions are and how it all ties together.
Yeah, definitely. Because we'll have more knowledge of all the returning characters, and we'll also just have knowledge of Tegan and Turlo, who are in that one. So yeah, we're on to The King's Demons today.
Ooh.
That is quite a title, I must say. And nice 2-parter. Looks to be historical, so we're in for a good time. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then let's just go ahead and jump right into The King's Demons. Here we go.
It's deadly. Doesn't sound familiar, but... Ye Old Castle.
Look at it. So much booze and dysentery.
Irish wolfhounds. Yes, the lascivious pleasings of a lute. Accurately eating with their knives, since forks have not become a thing yet.
But your majesty already has my whole fortune, willingly given but 6 months since. There is no more. My coffers are empty.
Your words are more generous than your purse, Lord Ranulph. If you speak truth, if we have your whole fortune.
You insult us.
You insult the king.
Your majesty.
You insult the king.
Stop being poor.
I beg your majesty. Take my lands, my goods, my chattels, even the robes I stand in, but spare me my surviving son.
Father, do not dishonor me. I love the joke at the end of Men in Tights, where they say, "You're such a disgraceful king, from now on all the privies in England shall be called Johns."
Uh-oh.
What sorcery is this?
This is the worst possible place to land.
Calm yourselves.
When is it?
March the 4th, 1215.
That's King John.
Is it England?
Yes, it is.
Could this be a Black Guardian trap?
I don't think so.
He exploded.
Something certainly isn't right.
Gasps. Hello. What's all this then?
Very odd indeed.
Makes a nice change for you not to take everything in your stride, I must say.
Must you?
Too right.
He even seems pleased to see us. A king welcoming demons.
Which king?
Oh, Tegan. 1215, King John, of course. We're still 3 months away from Magna Carta.
I'm really sorry I never got out to Runnymede when I was in England. I don't think my folks understood the importance of it.
Her name is Tegan, Your Majesty. This is Turlo, and I am the Doctor. We are not demons.
You're too modest, Lord Doctor. Come rejoice with us in a trial by combat. Come, make way for our demons.
Oh, King John's just there to have a good time, apparently.
In Shakespeare's King John, I played the Archduke of Austria, who theoretically killed John's brother. And in The Lion in Winter, I played Henry II, who was John's father.
Spare him.
Come, sir! Dispatch!
How can they live in such cold?
By eating lots of food.
It's a bit difficult for an Australian, I'm sure.
Thank you.
We used to use bed warmers. Put hot bricks by the fire and put them in a bronze pan and warm up the sheets with it before you go to bed.
No wonder they forced him to sign Magna Carta. Bet there was something in it about underheated housing.
It wasn't.
What's it what?
Forced him to signing Magna Carta. He was as much for it as anyone.
Now look, Doctor, I know my history.
Do you?
I would know who or what you are.
I've told you. I'm Turlo.
Take him.
How did he get separated?
Proud, my lord.
He stopped to look out the window.
Good job.
I came with the doctor.
And what is this doctor's purpose?
I don't know.
Well, perhaps I can loosen your tongue.
There really is no need for any of
Ah,
this.
yes. The Iron Maiden.
Hold.
Are you saying King John was a good man?
Well, given the times he lives in, yes. But don't take my word for it. You'll be able to judge for yourself. Nobody forced Magna Carta from him. He could have crushed that rebellion as easily as that.
It's Marco Polo all over again. Ah, yes, roast pig.
About Turlo.
Stop fussing.
Who cares?
To free the tomb of Christ our Lord, we'll put the unknown world to the sword.
He never made it to the Crusades.
There is no...
Well, he's not bad. He's better than, what was it, Nero in that first Doctor episode?
Now, sire, for some additional entertainment.
We're gonna play Spin the Iron Maiden. Whoever it lands on dies.
I am insulted. He is said to be the best swordsman in France.
Unfortunately, we are in England, may I? In case of accidents,
Doctor, don't do it.
Find Turlo.
It's been a while since he's had a sword fight.
Bill!
Yeah, you'd almost think he'd keep the jacket. It's an extra layer.
You escaped from Zarethas.
Oh, my dear doctor, you have been naive.
Oh, every time. Well, it's been a long time since he had a sword fight with the Master.
Was it the third Doctor?
Yeah. That was a long time ago. Oh, boy. I mean...
8 or 9 years.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I did see, when I loaded up Amazon, I saw the Master in the description. So I tried to make sure that you didn't see that. But then as I was watching, I just looked at him, I was like, that's totally the Master. Just with a bit of red hair and a French accent.
Well, I knew he had a lot of makeup on, but I didn't realize that's who it was. I thought maybe if it was the Master, it might turn out to be the King there.
That was the other thing, though, that it was like, I saw, it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's, Anthony Ainley. But I was thinking about it, it's like, well then, who's King John? Is King John like a robot or something? I don't know, but... I don't know if there's going to be a lot to talk about with this episode, but I'm just having a good time, Like, I don't know, there's something about, we can have all the other episodes, and they can be good, bad, whatever. Something about when we just, have something historical that I'm just gonna, there's a baseline of I'm gonna have a good time.
Well, obviously the setting is filmed outside some kind of, and inside some kind of real castle. Even if the sets are mocked up there, they're very good. Again, the clothing is very accurate. The speech is very accurate. All of the actors are, it's just, BBC historicals literally set the standard for historicals.
Yeah. So I know they're not the most popular, and that's probably why they're now relegated to two-parters. But still, it's just a lot of fun. And I will say, because I thought about it too. I was like, when was the last time the Doctor had a sword fight? I guess there was also, was it the Androids of Tara?
Yeah,
where he had that sword fight, which was an okay sword fight. I still say it could have used a little music, but maybe that's just me and my American brain, apparently. But here, this one was good. It wasn't a great sword fight, but it was still pretty decent.
That one thing that I've learned doing Shakespearean shows, because I've done half a dozen or more of the Shakespearean shows. A broadsword like that is very heavy. For a guy like the Doctor, he would really almost need to use both hands, because those things are way more than any saber or epee or foil or whatever they want to call those. So, a big broadsword like that, you would really have to hold that hilt with both hands just to be sure you don't get knocked down by the impact of somebody like Sergi.
Yeah, so... it's just good. And, we don't even need, full historicals, because obviously, this one has the Master and something's going up with that. Because I will say, just remembering, the Androids of Tara and State of Decay, that was the other one where that was the vampire episode. It's I like episodes like that, too, where it's it's medieval, but it's not on Earth. It's just in space. They're medieval. I don't know, they just feel like that.
Well, the Keepers of Traken was also somewhat medieval in space.
Yeah, a little bit. So it's nice. I'm enjoying it.
Yes.
I like how Tegan complains that it's so cold.
And, seriously, not a single bit of padding in that entire episode.
Yeah.
The only, I don't want to say flaw, but the only thing that's inexplicable at this point is why did Turlo stay behind, and what's going on with that storyline.
Well,
Tissue compression eliminator.
You've always been my greatest stimulation, my dear doctor, but now You inspire me.
Great catch.
Let the maiden embrace the vanquished.
Your Majesty, no! Have mercy! I beg you! No!
Sire, I must concede as victor. I beg you to be merciful.
We are not.
Do you think the maiden is his TARDIS?
Could be.
Your Majesty.
It was his TARDIS. He thought of everything.
He wants to rob the world of Magna Carta. Small-time villainy by his standards, but nevertheless something I intend to stop if at all possible.
Why do you serve this imposter king?
To gain time and access to this.
Father, they hatch plots.
You have slain Sir Geoffrey.
No, I believe he may be in the TARDIS. Blue engine.
Open it.
No, I must open it. Other demons may try to harm you. I must distract them somehow.
You're just pushing buttons. Well, bye.
Against the Saracen we are fought. To free the tomb of Christ our Lord, we'll put the
Oh, gosh.
world to a sword. Welcome, my dear.
Just walked off the set of the movie Metropolis, actually.
Your Majesty seems in need of a doctor.
Allow me to introduce Chameleon.
An apt name.
Your work.
We are a complex mass of artificial neurons.
And controlled by?
Nothing more than simple concentration and psychokinetics.
Well, you're definitely a psycho.
Meh.
Can anyone play?
Please.
Oh, another mind battle.
Quite masterly. You flatter me. I prefer bad King John. He obeys only my will.
Yes, but for how much longer?
For as long as I command it, Chameleon will not turn on me.
No?
You're getting old, Doctor. Your will is weak. It's time you regenerated.
You won't win, not ultimately.
He's still got another season, at least.
Sire, they have slain my kinsman.
Such perfidy must not go unpunished. We would have boiling oil. See to it.
Do you have enough oil on hand?
Yes. Yes, I'm not a demon for nothing.
Very well, my dear Doctor. Your will against mine, so be it.
He's much more reserved in this episode. Much
Well,
more like the original Master.
Well,
No!
You oppose me, boy.
I've had quite enough of you, whoever you are. So don't try me too far.
Turlo!
No!
doesn't even know what's happening.
Can you see it too?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Let me present Chameleon.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
How can we be certain he still isn't under the control of the Master?
That isn't possible.
Do you trust him?
Yes.
It seems you're outvoted.
I'm very grateful, Doctor.
Just a new companion.
No, you can have
I mean,
my
no,
room for all I
but-
care.
There were many wonders I wanted to show you.
You still can.
The Eye of Orion.
Indeed.
You've been there?
Yes. It is very beautiful.
But you wish to return home.
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
Then
Show
be
me the
nice
Eye
to
of
the
Orion,
robot.
Please.
All right. You won't regret it, I promise you.
Well, aren't you going to reset the coordinates?
No. That's where we're going.
Okay.
I'm gonna check and be sure they're not missing a part 3. No, that's it. That's the whole. I mean, I guess the Master does come back in the 5 Doctors, but kind of weird. It does also list Chameleon now as a companion.
Huh. Now, here's the deal. In that episode, it looked like it was mechanical.
Yeah.
But obviously they're going to need someone like a C-3PO if it's going to be useful in future episodes. They're going to have to change it either into a real person or a person inside the chameleon suit.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't remember the chameleon in the 5 Doctors.
He's not. I'll tell you right now, he's not in the one after that either. Or the one after. That's it. He's done. That's it.
Right. Well, not the resolution we were hoping for. In that it only resolved itself in that they escaped from the Master's clutches, and we didn't see the Master react to the fact that his TARDIS had been reprogrammed.
Yeah.
So, again, it's not the satisfying conclusion that we thought the entire 2 episodes were leading up to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they did thwart the plan of he no longer has bad King John. So, yeah. But it's
all right, but the Doctor said King John was a good king, ultimately forced by the bad antics that the Barons essentially forced him to sign Magna Carta. The Doctor said that's not the way it happened. So I was assuming that the Chameleon King was going to be the bad king. I don't know. It seemed kind of disjointed there.
Yeah.
Because if the real King John is a good king and now the Chameleon is gone, how does John end up being the bad king that essentially gets Magna Carta forced on him?
Yeah.
I'll think about it later. I'm very tired at the moment.
I mean, yeah, I am not the most up-to-date on the history of the Magna Carta or King John, but yeah, is this... That is kind of weird that it's that the Doctor specifically says, no, at least for the time he was in, King John was a good king, and he could have quashed the rebellion at any moment, but he willingly signed the Magna Carta.
Okay. His army, now again, I'm going off of years and years ago when I was teaching about this. My understanding was John was not popular, partially simply because he wasn't Richard. Richard was beloved, even though Richard was not the greatest king in the world. He was gone for most of his reign on crusades. John essentially took the throne and started taking away church lands, and this is 200 years before the Reformation, 200 years before Henry VIII. And not only did the church essentially rebel against him, but again, in this idea of financing the next crusade, he started taking away people's lands and fortunes, including Robin of Locksley, who becomes Robin Hood. Yada. I mean, that's that whole legend. But ultimately, what happened was most of the barons, who were essentially the highest level, they were again not like Congress or Parliament or anything, but they were the highest level of monarchy rulers next to the king. They didn't like the fact that the king was making them too much like the common man in taking their lands and taxes. So that's why they all got together. They wrote several drafts of the Magna Carta, and ultimately, as they rode into London, John said, "Oh, my army can put this rebellion down quickly," only to find out that his own army said, "You know what? We're getting kind of tired of you too." And although again, he didn't try, if I recall, he didn't actually try to rouse the people to his defense. Ultimately, they met on the plain of Runnymede, and the Baron said, "Look, here is what we want. We're not going to depose you. We still think you are our king. We owe you that. but we would like for you to follow these rules. All right, it's literally the first time rules were imposed upon a king of England. And John thinking, well, I'll do this, and then later on when my army comes back to me, maybe I'll get this straightened out. But again, according to the legend, and I don't know if this is fact or not, the following year in 1216, John was touring the countryside, and he stopped at an abbey overnight, where the story goes, the monks, who were very angry that the king was taking away all of their property, all the church's property, they actually poisoned him. And then he died the next day. In Shakespeare, John's death scene is one of the legendary death scenes. Really, really interesting. Now, you think to yourself, now wait a minute. These are men of God. These are, people working for the Prince of Peace. Why would they poison someone? It goes back to that old story of, if you had the opportunity to kill the child Hitler, knowing what he would become, would you do that? So, the theory is the monks decided that they would essentially sacrifice their own eternal lives in order to rid the country of John. I mean, that's my vaguest reconstruction of that entire story. So, I don't know.
So, does the Doctor just not know that? Or is there some weird alternate history that Terence Dudley wanted to write, but nobody cared and they only gave him 2 episodes anyway?
Yeah. And again, I don't know. I would have to go back and re-look at the story of King John. And again, understand that I'm going from Shakespeare's version of it and from all the legends of Robin Hood. But again, I did have to study that when I was teaching world history, because I did a whole lot with the English parliamentary system, which ultimately, it wasn't the world's first democracy. That theoretically started about 200 years or 300 years prior to this with the Vikings in Iceland. But the idea of this parliamentary, this democratic monarchy, constitutional monarchy, starts with John, and then the remaining kings, all the way up to pretty much King Charles, decided that it was in their best interests to not have the people turn against them. So they would abide by the Magna Carta and the subsequent revisions to it until, and again, I think it was Charles who ultimately said, I don't need the Parliament. I have the God-given right to be king, and, he was deposed and executed.
So,
and again, for our British viewers, if I've gotten that wrong, please forgive me. It's been 10 years since I taught world history, so my memory is vague at best.
Yeah, this is one of those cases. We make a lot of jokes with and against the British. This is one we will defer to the British on, because I certainly don't know enough. I could be like, I'll just sit here and be like, yeah, I think I saw that in a Russell Crowe movie once. So
yes, that was the Robin Hood that he did.
Yeah, so I don't really know, and it's not like most of this is being taught in American schools anymore anyway.
And that's really sad, because again, the Magna Carta is one of the most pivotal moments in world history, not just in British history. But that's when, literally for the first time since the ancient Athenians, where it was decided the king may be the ruler, just like the Archon was, but the people had the right to have, certain rights, essentially, that where it said, yes, the king may do this, but he cannot throw people in prison without just cause. You have to be arrested, you have to be charged with a crime, you have to have a swift jury by a swift trial by a jury of your peers, and so basically, and again, I know the barons still kept most of the goodies for themselves, but this was the beginning of democracy in the modern world as we know it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Chuck McGill says in Better Call Saul when he references the Magna Carta in the episode Chicanery. Anywho, and again, that is the contribution I can make to the. But again, like I guess I'm sort of like Tegan here, where she says like I know history. John wasn't a good king, thus they forced him to sign the Magna Carta. But I don't know. See, I'm just curious about that. It's also just weird having this be, because presuming let's make sure. Yeah. So, The Five Doctors aired on its own November of 1983.
Which is like 6 months after this.
Yes. So what a weird season finale, really.
Yeah.
Like, because, and I mean, normally, because I guess last season was also 7 stories, and the 7th one was Time Flight, and that was the end of the season. But this one, this is the 6th one, so the 7th one, I guess they just were like, well, let's save the 5 Doctors for the anniversary. It makes sense, but otherwise, you know, maybe they had, I'm sure that was starting to be, you know, put in the magazines and the TV guides and stuff. Hey, the 5 Doctors is coming in November, you know, but for that 6-month break, that's just kind of a weird one to end off on.
Yeah.
So, especially because, yeah, it seems like they really didn't defeat the Master. I mean, yeah, they stopped the bad King John, but still, I don't know. It's weird. And Chameleon is, I guess he's cool. I guess he's just, sometimes he gets influenced by the Master, but otherwise, he's fine.
Well, I think ultimately there at the end, he realizes that the Master was a bad influence. And I don't know if that's a suggestion the Doctor put in his mind or not, but he does seem to break away from that. So, again, leaves us hanging for 6 months going, what is going on here?
Well, yeah. You know, as fun as it is to have the Master, and it is fun, and Anthony Ainley has definitely gotten into the role very well at this point. One thing I thought, because they brought up the monks that poisoned King John, but that made me think of the monk from Doctor Who, the meddling monk, and I thought, wasn't that just his plan? Not with King John, but it was something else. Yeah. I think it was like William the Conqueror or something.
Yeah.
That he was going to mess with that. I don't think they ever really gave a reason why, other than he could.
Yeah, just because he wanted to.
Yeah, because he was just a Time
He was a
Lord.
meddler.
Yeah. But honestly, that might have made a little bit more sense than this, because again, the Master's ideas are pretty terrible. They're always really bad, but he sells it because he's just so charming, you know? It's always great whenever you get the Master. But here, it really is like, okay, so you're going to have a bad King John, which is saying something, a bad King John that won't just be so bad that they create the Magna Carta, but will be so bad that they just kill him and overthrow him, which I guess will cause chaos. They did mention, like, I guess they might bring in King Philip of France, I guess, to replace him. Yeah. But that would destabilize, you know, English history and the rest of the history of the world, basically. But what does the Master gain from this other than just the chaos?
Well, again, part of the end of King John is that John prevents the war with Philip of France by marrying, I think it's his niece or his cousin, Lady Blanche, to the Dauphin, the son and heir to the French throne. So, again, it's all very confusing because Philip did not end up taking over Britain, but again, I don't think the barons would have allowed that because we still got, you know, another 200 years or at least another 100 years of war with France and England before we get to Henry V, which technically ends all that.
They fought each other a lot, didn't they?
Yeah,
it's just an interesting, funny thing.
It all starts with William. William the Conqueror was, according to the previous king, I think it was Edward the Confessor, Edward decided to name, and it was like a distant cousin, he decided to name William of France to be the next king of England. But Harold Godwinson of England said, we don't want a Frenchman to be our king. You know, he said, I am also a relative of the king's, and even though he didn't choose me, I have a better right because I am actually, you know, English born, which led to the Battle of Hastings, where Godwinson is killed. Edward, so William becomes the king, and Edward, his son, I think it was Edward, but his son takes over, and that starts the whole Plantagenet line, and leading again all the way up to the War of the Roses, where we finally get the Tudors and Henry VIII, and then Elizabeth. So yeah, I seriously, if I taught college, I would teach William the Conqueror to Elizabeth I, just and eat it up, because that's my favorite time period there in British history. But again, I did want to point out one last thing about John. He was so reviled in English history that no other king has taken the name John. He's not John the First, he's John the Only. And when Queen Elizabeth II passed away last year, I was very interested to find out if Charles was going to keep the name Charles, because Charles I was probably, next to John, one of the most hated kings. And then Charles II, again, I don't remember that specifically if he was as well liked, but it was finally James, Charles II's son, James II, and then William of Orange, William III, William V, I can't remember, who finally basically came in and said, we're going to do away with all of those horrible people in the past and don't worry about Cromwell and all the rest of them. And they're the ones who set up the Enlightenment monarchy of William and Mary and so forth, and led to the United Kingdom, I want to say in the early 1700s, where they finally said, look, we're not just going to be Great Britain and Scotland and Wales, we're going to come together as Great Britain. These three countries will come together, all serving under the same monarch.
So I guess, so is the king, or I guess even the queen, is it like the Pope that they could just take a new name if they want?
Yes.
I guess if you're the king, I guess you have say in that. Yes. So,
because Elizabeth's father, I think his name was Albert. I think that because everybody called him Bertie. But he decided, I think, to take the name Edward. Because at that point, people were still remembering that Victoria's husband, Albert, who was not the king, he was the Queen's consort, was from German heritage. And Victoria died right before World War I, and so they didn't want a German king or a German lineage king serving, so they did away with all of the Gothenburg and Saxe and whatever the German name were, and they became the House of Windsor. And that's where ultimately Elizabeth II became the queen when her father died.
All right. So we're just assuming then enough time has passed that nobody's going to care about Charles. And honestly, the fact that the man's old. He's been called Charles for a very long time anyway.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, he is now Charles III.
Yeah. And we might get back to Doctor Who in a second anyway. But we're just on British history now. But anyway, I don't know. So who's next after
William.
Charles? William. Okay. William's a decent name, I guess. Do you think he would change that?
No. And again, he would be, and we've probably mentioned this before, I think he's really up there. He would be like William the 6th, 7th, or 8th. I mean, he's there because there was a whole bunch of Williams in the early days, and now, and then after William, his oldest son is Louis, I think, and they've never had a King Louis of England.
Yeah.
So because that's the French kings. There were
sure.
18 Louis or 17 Louis, something like that. So he might actually change his name, but we don't know for sure.
Well, because I was about to ask, since there's only one John, they never had another John after that guy. What was the last just sort of out there new name that a king or queen chose?
Well, Victoria, they had never had a Victoria before, and that was 1840 to almost 1900. She was up until Elizabeth II, she was the longest-serving British monarch, if I recall correctly. But no, they've had a lot of Georges. Of course, Americans are most knowledgeable about George III because he was the king during the American Revolutionary War.
Oh, yeah.
But he was also the king during the War of 1812, if I recall correctly, but don't quote me on that one. But there were a whole bunch of Georges. There's been a whole bunch of Edwards, Williams. There were 3 Richards. There've been a bunch of Jameses. And of course, you go back to the really early ones. You have Alfred and literally Ethelred. I think Ethelred was the unready. There may have been an Ethelbert. Canute was the king, but he was one of the Saxon kings, if I recall. So it's mostly after Alfred that they become really the British monarchs. So anyway, again, please, British viewers, please forgive me. My memory is kind of Swiss cheesed on this, but please, I love British history. Having lived in England from 63 to 66, this is where I first got my dose of English history. And if I had a choice other than world history, I do love teaching world history, I would teach British history.
I love all their nicknames too, like the Unready. It's like all that time she's unready. No,
and a lot of these nicknames, because there were so many of them. There was a king of France. I can't remember if he was Louis the Bald or someone was called the Bald. There was a guy who was known as the Fat. But yeah, Ethelred the Unready. That was pretty funny.
Well, yeah, and I guess it's better. It's still, but like all of these, multiple uses of all of these names and stuff. I'll still say it's better than the popes, who have just been around. They've been around a long time, and was it they only have like 4 names or something?
Well,
no.
But yes,
a lot of reuses.
Pope John, the last Pope John, was like John the 23rd.
You'd think after 5 you'd pick something else.
Yes, but again, based on the idea that John was one of the first apostles, that's obviously a very popular name. Pope Paul, there were at least 6 Pauls. There were 2 John Pauls. Pope Francis was not his real name. He was Argentinian, but chose Francis because of Saint Francis, because he wanted to model his papacy after the essentially caring for the people of Saint Francis of Assisi. But yeah, Gregory, there's been a bunch of Gregorys. Again, digging way into my mind, and I'm way too tired to remember all of this. But
yeah,
we're just trying to fill some time here so that this doesn't end up being a 30-minute video here.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably harder to remember all the names of the popes than all the names of the British monarchs. So,
yeah, because again, the papacy as we know it now, theoretically, the Catholic Church claims that it goes all the way back to St. Peter being the first pope. But the records of the papacy really start in the either late 300s or early 400s, if I recall correctly. That's where we can actually say we know this is the person who was called the Pope because we have official documents from the Roman era.
Yeah, so that's 1,000 years before when this took place, when we just had King John.
Yeah.
So
there's a bunch of Boniface, Pope Boniface, Benedict, the last one who was a German Pope. Cardinal Ratzinger became Pope Benedict the, 16th, something like that. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was also going to ask, what's the most used name, but I guess it would just be John.
Yes, I think John is probably, again, the fact that they had 23 Johns.
Yeah, so. Anywho, history lesson possibly over.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. The other stuff this episode, I guess, because it was kind of short, it's like Tegan and Turlo didn't have a lot to do, and it just kind of went nowhere, so they really didn't have anything to do.
Of the hour, 2 30-minute segments, the first 45 minutes was really good. We were enjoying it, and then the ending just did not live up to its predecessors.
Yeah, so I'm at least glad to have Turlo on our side, basically, fully this time. Oh, and he did say at the end that he's seen the Eye of Orion, so I guess... Okay. We need to put this to bed once and for all in the comments. Is Turlo an alien? Because if so, they have not explained that properly.
Yeah. How did he get to Earth in the first place?
Yeah, why was he just at a British school? I can understand why he wouldn't want to be there if he's an alien, but unless he's just screwing with them. which is entirely possible. So, I don't know. But yeah, he definitely seems to be an alien, I guess.
But completely humanoid. Doesn't seem to have any special powers or anything. He's just an ordinary humanoid from another planet.
Yeah. That's all I got. That was it. So
that's it.
So I hope you enjoyed today's history lesson.
And please be gentle in the comments.
Yeah, we fully acknowledge that everything we could have said might be wrong. He's tired. I don't know anything. So, despite the fact that I also have a degree in history, I don't know much. So, that is the American educational system for you.
An indictment of the American educational system.
Well, you know what we always said in college. C's get degrees. Next time around, we are watching The Five Doctors.
Yay.
The 20th anniversary special. 1 hour and 30 minutes. We're going to go straight through the whole thing. And we'll hopefully not be tired or not know our facts next time. Although I don't know how many facts we need to know. And we're rewatching the episode anyway. So
going back to Gallifrey.
Back to Gallifrey. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. You know, one thing I was going to reference, too, is the War of the Roses. And hear me out on this. That was the basis of a Yu-Gi-Oh game. I swear to you. And no Yu-Gi-Oh player can defend that game. Because I think it was like on PlayStation 2. It was called Duelists of the Roses. Where they just redid the entire War of the Roses, but with Yu-Gi-Oh characters for some reason. So you have your main hero, Henry Yugi Tudor, and it's just Yugi as Henry Tudor. It's the weirdest thing in Yu-Gi-Oh history, and none of us can explain it. I've never played it. I kind of want to. It sounds hilarious, but...
Yeah, go back and read... Well, start with Shakespeare's Henry IV, parts 1 and 2, then Henry V, and then Henry VI, 1 and 2, and then Richard III. That'll explain the entire War of the Roses.
Alright. Where do the card games come in? Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist with all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.